Coming up in today's episode, we're having a conversation with a former Hollywood stunt performer, packed with storytelling moments, remarkable in iconic movies such as Pearl Harbor with Ben Affleck, Troy with Brad Pitt, and many more. Stay tuned to see what comes next on Revelation. Welcome back in Revelation. My name is Kapi Diangu. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share this podcast. Today I'm so excited because I'm receiving my guest, that is Sebastian Sebiot. Thank you, Sebastian, for being on Revelation today.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you, Cappy, and thank you for inviting me and for doing the interview. I really appreciate it.
So, Sebastian, we want to find out who was Sebastian before becoming a stunt performer.
Do you know what? I grew up out of a normal family. I had a father who was one of the great so-called great white hunters in the late 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
So when I grew up as a kid, my playmates were the trackers of the black trackers. So my earliest companions in the bush were black, and so I never got this color thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
At school it mystified me, you know. It was like, what are they talking about, you know? So when people say they're colorblind, it's fashionable, but I am colorblind. It's people are people, and out of the valuable lessons I've learned, and out of some of the hardest, the most difficult lessons I've been through,
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that people are people. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we all bleed red, and we all the same underneath the skin. And what makes a person is what's inside them that
Mm-hmm.
comes out. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel that if we judge people, we should judge them according to the Aristotelian concept. Is
Mm-hmm.
you judge a person according to the the uh, the, uh, uh, the what they give to society around them. They give to society around them, the impact they make on people.
Yes.
So when it really comes down to it, it's life is about people, and don't forget that. It's not about money. It's not about cars. It's about people. And whichever way you look at it, when you're stripped of and you've got nothing,
Mm-hmm.
that's all you are. And I had the unique and painful privilege of going through being stripped of nothing, of having everything,
Mm-hmm.
and then suddenly having nothing and having to learn from the beginning again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of what was important and what wasn't.
And what was important at that time?
You know what? I mean, when I was South Africa's top stuntman at the time. I had I started my company up in Johannesburg, and then I had a partner I didn't get on that well with, so I came down and I opened a branch here,
Mm-hmm.
and then the branch here started getting more and more work until we were getting probably 70% of the total work in stunt work, working on movies and commercials,
Mm-hmm.
and I had teams of stuntmen working for me, and so. So basically, the company grew and grew and grew until it pretty much dominated the scene for several years. You know, I was
Mm-hmm.
the top dog, so to speak. So my ego was running riot. You know, I had all the toys. I
Mm-hmm.
had the Porsche. I had the 4x4. I had the kayak. I had the paraglider. I had the skydiving gear. And I used to participate in all the active sports, and life was people came to me and said, "I want to be you, guy. You know, you've got everything."
Mm-hmm.
And I was traveling overseas. I was doing a lot of work overseas at the time as well,
Still as a stunt performer.
as a stunt performer. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and in South Africa as well, I was a stunt coordinator. I used to direct all of the stunts. And occasionally I'd work for another stunt coordinator as a stunt man, but for the most part, most of my career was taken up with coordinating, putting together the stunts. And then also the benefit of being that is the more dangerous the stunt is, the more money you get paid for it.
Mm.
And so the stunt coordinator decides who gets that job. So if I was a stunt coordinator, I'd give myself that job. So I'd give myself the high paying, dangerous jobs, and I would always be pushing the limits. Um, And you know, they say pride comes before a fall.
Mhm.
And it was I literally I went through being the top dog. I went from hero to zero in one day, one accident, one. Uh, um, I actually had two major accidents. The first one was in 1998, where I was teaching somebody else how to do a fall off a building into an
Mhm.
airbag,
Mhm.
and I was overconfident. And instead of walking down the stairs, I said to him, "No, pump up the bag. I'll jump down." You know.
Mhm.
So they pumped up the bag, and I took my cap in my hand, and I jumped, and I was overconfident, and I hit the airbag a little bit skew, so my feet touched the airbag first, because you're supposed to land flat on your back to spread
Okay.
it,
Mhm.
and it snapped me forward, and it snapped me in half. So I broke my sternum against my pubic bone, and my chin went
My
through my
goodness.
legs, and my vertebra, some of my vertebra jumped into spare parts, and that set me back. It put me in a brace for over a year, and it was the most difficult time. You know, I put it to good use. I learned a lot of things in that, and then I had a few years later.
Before reaching that part of the accident, I want to find out where the passion come from of becoming the performer.
You
Where
know,
did you get that passion from?
it was like I was born for it. You
Mm,
know, I was studying. I was in the military. I was active in the military. I came out, and
also.
yeah, and I studied for the ministry because my father was a minister, a full gospel minister. So I studied for the ministry. But then I got to the point where what I was seeing them preach from the pulpit, and what I was seeing them actually, what I was seeing in the book, and what I was seeing preached from the pulpit were two different things. And so I remember going to the senior pastor at the time and saying, "Do you know what Paul says? If by eating meat I cause my brother to stumble,
Mhm.
I will not eat meat for the rest of my life." Now, what happens if you, with a blue collar, collar congregation, driving a Mercedes Benz,
Mhm.
causes 2/3 of your congregation to stumble? How do you relate that? And I confronted him, and it was at a pastors' conference,
Mhm.
and so my days were numbered in the ministry then, and then it was just literally, uh, and what happened is I had started by running the youth group,
Mhm.
and it started with 300 people, and it built up to 1,500 people, and then somebody whispered in the pastor's ear that if I left the ministry and I took 1,500 kids, I'd also take their parents with me if I started my own ministry. And so they sidelined me, and then basically gave me notice, and I left, and I said, "Well, what next?"
Mhm.
And I had an opportunity. I was depressed. A friend of mine pulled me out onto the set. I
Mhm.
was on the set, you know, as an extra, and I saw the stuntmen doing their stuff, and I thought, you know what, I could get into that. You know, I could do this stuff. This is exciting stuff that these guys are doing. You know, and
Why
so
were you depressed at that moment?
because you know, the ministry was gone. You know, I'd
Mhm.
lost that.
Yeah.
I had no income. I had no job.
Mhm.
It was. It was my passion, and
Mhm.
now,
Also.
yeah, and the rug had been pulled, and it was like, what do I do now? And it's hard. It's hard to trust God in your darkest moments, and there were some very dark moments, you know. I just, you know, at the time I was married, my marriage was taking a lot of strain because financially, and things were difficult. And then what happened is he took me onto set. I
Mhm.
saw the stuntmen doing their stuff,
Mhm.
and
What
then
was it particularly
he,
that captivated your attention?
no, I mean he took me out there. It was
Mhm.
a movie called The Outlaw of Gore. It was a terrible B grade movie,
Mhm.
but they had a stunt team where they were
Mhm.
doing stuff, and I liked what they were doing. It was active. It
Mhm.
was exciting. It was like, hey, I could do that, you know. And so the next movie I worked on had an American stunt coordinator,
Mhm.
and it was a movie called American Ninja 2. And what happened is I went to stunt coordinator, and
Mhm.
I said to him, "Look, this is who I was. This is what I did in the military. I can do ropes. I can do underwater. I can skydive. I can do." And he said, "Okay, I'll put you on the team. Be here at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning." And he put me on the set as a stuntman. And then by complete mistake, I was put into a place which was very dangerous. And what happened is we were all working as ninjas, so people were covered like ninjas. So you couldn't tell who was who were the extras and who were the stuntmen. So all the stuntmen had a little gold stud put through their ear, so you could see, okay, that's a stuntman.
Yes.
And so I walked over to the stunt coordinator, and he was to say thank you, for BJ for giving me a chance. And he was having an argument with a stuntman who had chickened out of a stunt that he'd agreed to do, which was an explosion out of a tower. And so he just saw the stud in my ear, and he said to me, "Hey, you, get your ass up in that tower." And he wasn't the kind of guy you argued with. So I went and climbed up in the tower, and the next thing, people were putting boxes around and everything else, and the lights were shining in my face, and I looked over and I went, "Hey, BJ."
So unprepared. Huh?
Yeah. And so he said, "What?" And he looked up, and I said, "What am I doing here?" And I pulled my mask down. He saw that he had a total rookie up there. And he said to me, "Son, you've got a choice now."
Yeah.
He said, "I can tell you what to do and you can do it." He said, "There's only one way to learn this, and that's to do it." He said, "Or you can come down." He said, "The choice is yours." So I said, "Look, I'm up here. Just tell me what to do."
Yeah.
He said, "Okay, what'll happen is we'll say roll camera, and then speed, and then action. Now, do you see that thing at your feet?" And so I bent down in the dark with the light shining, and I had a look, and there was this big parcel the size of a pillow. I said, "Yes." He said, "That's a black powder naphthalene bomb." And it was like, "What?" He said, "So."
A real bomb.
Yeah. So he said, "I will count 3, 2, 1, and then it's going off. So on 3, you need to be starting to move. On 2, you need to be almost in flight. On 1, you need to be halfway out, because that explosion's going to catch up with you."
And this is your first time.
And this was my first time, So the next thing, I was in this lonely space of just like thinking, what have I got myself into, And this is crazy, It's like I was scared and my adrenaline was going there. And then I suddenly discovered something, which I discovered on all the stunts following that.
Yeah.
Is the adrenaline was running and running and running and running, and my heart was thundering. But then when they went speed, when they said action, all of a sudden everything focused and everything went quiet and everything went into slow-mo, and I started to run, and then all of a sudden there was this, I got hotter than I've ever been hotter in my life as the flames enveloped me, and I came out the other side and I landed in the box rig, the catch rig, and the next thing, people were pulling me out and patting me on the back and saying well done, and I was hooked. I felt like $1 million. It was like, this is for me,
This is where everything began.
Yeah, that's where it all started, And then a couple of movies later on, I was in another.
This is in South Africa.
Yeah, I was in another co-American production with the same stunt coordinator, and the special effects people overdid the explosion, and it put me in hospital for 7 weeks with burns. And I mean, my face literally melted off. My lips had to be reconstructed, and the stunt coordinator BJ came in and he said, "Are you also going to sue me?" I said, "No, what for? You take the call, you take the fall." I said, "It wasn't your fault. It was the special effects, So just have a job for me when I come out, because I'm going to need some money." And he said, "I'm going to take you wherever I go from then." And from every movie he took me on, and he taught me the trade, and I learned the trade from a Hollywood stunt coordinator, and I started working on some of the bigger and better productions, and until he set me free to coordinate my own movies and to do stuff, and then it was commercials, and then I learned a lot of skills along the way, I mean, I learned how to fight, I mean, I was always handy, but I ended up sparring with some of the top fight people in the world, like Mike Stone, who was Elvis Presley's bodyguard,
Elvis Presley, okay.
Yeah, and he was, and he taught me. He was a black belt ninja, and he taught me, and I'd work with him. And then on another movie, I worked with John Barrett, who was Chuck Norris's sparring partner,
Okay.
and he taught me a different style. And then I learned Muay Thai, and I learned all the different fights.
In which year was this happening?
This was between, it's difficult to say, this was 1985, 86,
1985.
87, yeah.
So
And
this is how you get into Hollywood.
well, it's one way. I mean, there's many ways into Hollywood. Yeah, most of it's luck. Hollywood's a very closed club. You know, you normally got to know somebody to get in, or you've got to sleep with somebody to get in. You know, it's like it's a very closed environment, and it's a pretty incestuous environment, really. You know, and it's a very exclusive environment. And the stuntmen are the exclusive amongst them. You've got the stars. And you've got the stuntmen, two exclusive environments, and then you've got all the rest of the crew that join the two together. Oh.
So tell us about how is a typical day on set, such maybe a Pearl Harbor or Troy.
Look, I mean, on Pearl Harbor and Troy, I was a junior when I went on to Pearl Harbor. It was my favorite movie of all time.
Why?
I was working with the best stunt coordinator I'd ever worked with, Kenny Bates. I was getting paid better than I'd ever been paid before. I was getting
keep the figures for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was getting my travel was first class. I was put in a 5-star accommodation. I was treated well, and I got paid huge amounts. You know, it was ridiculous. It was like a pot of gold. You know, it was like. And also it was a good movie. And it had a good director, and it had fantastic action. I mean, you had a movie where Michael Bay had so much authority and so much credibility that he got the US Navy to actually roll out real ships that had been mothballed so that they could bomb them and set them on fire and everything else. And they had aircraft. They had the Japanese Zeros. They made replicas of these. And what they would do is they'd build a cage, like in a NASCAR cage, a racing car cage, which would protect your body. So, you know, you see people that survive collisions and things at 200 miles an hour, and they tumble and the guys walk out, nothing's wrong with them, you know. They get out of a Formula One car which is disintegrated. And it's because of this cage they build around you, and the way that you're strapped in.
Which material is built that cage?
It's made of normally it's made out of tubular steel, which doesn't have a seam. It's seamless. They'll take a solid iron bar and they will bore a tube out of it, and they'll cut a tube out of it, and then they'll bend it. That thing,
ingenious.
You could drop a building on it. It doesn't break. Cages do not break. You get some more modern cages nowadays which are a lot lighter and spread the stress. You've got better materials now. You've got titanium. You've got a lot of different options, and so yeah, the equipment has got better and the risks have gone down. When I was in the business, I was always pushing the risks, you know, and so I briefly held 3 world records, and that got me recognized. And then all of a sudden it'd say, who's this dude who just just broke the high fall record, you know? And then I started becoming a little bit more notorious in that regard, and started getting bigger and better movies, and my pay grade went up. I could demand more money, you know? And it was ridiculous. I mean, I'd be taking home then in 1989. I'd be taking home 100,000 a week. You know,
a week. Oh my God!
It was, and I had the house, and I had all the toys and everything. I had the Porsche.
All in Hollywood.
Yeah, and that was all here. That was all here. I had my place in Hout Bay, and that was my home base, Hout Bay, and then I would travel overseas. You know.
Oh, okay. You'd be in and out.
A transit. Yeah.
Okay.
When I lived in Hollywood, I lived in Santa Monica, off Santa Monica Boulevard, and I went to a little gym down the road there and made friends, and of course I was always invited out to all the parties. And being I was at one time I doubled for Bruce Willis at one point, and then
In which movie was it?
look, I mean, it was Unbreakable. But then there was also other things. Bruce Willis had a stuntman who was contracted to him, so I couldn't take the credit. So I would do it, and I wouldn't get the credit for it.
Why is that?
Just because he's contracted to.
Oh.
It's a contractual obligation he has, you know, and they have between each other. And so, and then when I worked on Troy, I worked and helped.
I think that's my favorite movie.
Yeah,
so.
look, I mean, I helped to train with Brad Pitt, and it was, and he was my favorite actor.
Wow.
Out of all the he was very professional. Like what would happen, his time would be very restricted, my time would be very open. So what would happen, a stunt coordinator would work all the fight with me as if I was fighting Brad, and then he'd go to Brad and pretend to be me fighting Brad, and it was like all these dance moves choreographed, and then we'd meet on the set for the first time, we'd be put together, and we'd have to do this lot, you know, and you don't make a mistake at that level, you know, and I made a mistake, and when he was supposed to stab me with his two swords, I stepped forwards half a step and I crowded him, and you know, and as I stabbed him, he spat out some blood in his mouth, and
For you?
yeah, no, just you know, the makeup blood, and then Simon Crane, the stunt coordinator, came running out to read me the riot act. He was going to crap on me, and Brad said, "Simon, I'm sorry, I missed my step. I crowded your man."
So he
And of course
he
he covered up for me, and I said to him, I said, "Thanks, guy." He said, "No problem, dude." You know, he got me off the hook. He was
What could have happened if he didn't cover up for you?
yeah. If he didn't cover up for me, it's like you don't get a second chance.
Okay.
You know, not at that level. It's like, okay, you're on a plane. You know, you can't cut the mustard. It's like a springbok expecting like a Colby to miss a catch. It doesn't happen, you know. It's at that level you don't tolerate mistakes.
Do you think that there is a most misunderstood part of being a stunt performer?
Yeah, people think that you're bulletproof, that you don't feel pain. People think that that you're fearless, and it's not true. People think you have a death wish. Not true. It's people seem to think that you eat bricks for breakfast. You know, it's like you're just a normal person. You're thin-skinned, and you realize how thin-skinned when you're exposed to the kind of elements that you tend to get exposed to, which is normally like in a form of some kind of explosion or whatever. And also, it's like in driving the cars, you develop specialities. I became a specialist driver, so I drove for Porsche, I drove for BMW, I drove for Volkswagen. I got flown over to drive for Seat. You know, it was.
Is the experience different?
It was. I became really good at driving. I mean, I became really good. I rolled about 13, 14 cars deliberately. You know, it was at different times. And I had some of my closest calls to being killed were in in driving stunts. You know, it was like on one, I had to drive towards the camera, and then the guy who's acting has got a death wish, and so he jumps in front of a truck coming the other way. So now the cameras are set over there, so they see my car disappearing behind the truck, and then I don't pop out, and then I hold it as long as I can, and then I twitch it out and just miss the truck. And on there was a piece of strapping where they'd strop the camera on the offside of the car that I was driving, which was a Porsche. And when I went past, I heard a bang, and the driver of the truck, I told him, whatever you do, do not brake. Don't drive onto me and then brake on me, and then like drive with me underneath you. You know, you've got to go over me, so you don't stop. So he said, okay. And he saw me disappear, and he waited for the impact, and he heard the bang. And what happened is we measured that strap afterwards, and it was 17 inches long, and we worked out that I missed him by 1/125th of a second, you know, of having contact. And that's called precision driving. You know, it's like you do precision driving. I could pitch a car across the road straight into a parking lot and stop it, you know, right next to the curb. You know, you learn all the little tricky tricks and everything else, and it comes with practice. And I did racing driving. One of the accidents I had was when I was driving, and it was the last race I did. And it was I was in Formula V, and it was the worst accident at Kailami in that class in 27 years. And they normally say they can get anybody out of a car in 10 minutes, and it took 2 cutting crews 45 minutes to get me out of the car. And I had this forearm had gone through the sidewall of the car. I had broken ribs, my knees were broken, my femur was broken. You know, I was in pretty shabby state afterwards. It took me a while to get back on my feet. I never raced after that. I just didn't have didn't have it in me to push the limits, because when you're racing driving, you're always on the limit. It feels like you're on thin ice the whole time. You know, it's like you've got on the limits of cohesion and adhesion. How much the car is sticking and how much it wants to throw itself off the track. And you've got to find that fine balance, and it's a hair's breadth. And that's the difference between 1/10 of a second in a corner, which gives you a half a second lead per lap. So when you see these racing drivers, they are on the limits. Those guys don't have any room for error, you know. And I've learned a lot of respect for your Formula One drivers. I mean, it's like they at the speeds they're going today is ridiculous, you know. And you know, you've got 250 miles an hour, and it's like, and then they're going into these big long curves, and it's like, holy cow, how did they do that, you know?
And what were your speeds?
No, look, when I had the accident, it was at a relatively low speed. I'd had an accident in the setup which destroyed my back suspension, and so they rebuilt my suspension, so my car wasn't set up properly. So in the first heat, because you have 2 heats, I dropped back in positions, and then they corrected everything. And the second heat I was catching up positions, and I was overtaking, and as I overtook, my back left-hand wheel just touched the front right-hand wheel of another car, and it turned and it slammed me into the sidewall, and that was the end of the race, you know, and the end of the racing career.
Did you miss that life?
You know what? It's like I had the Porsche, and I love driving, and I've loved driving fast. Now I drive a little Suzuki, and I'm happy, you know. It's I had to. I mean, when I got bankrupted, when I had the big accident.
How many years ago?
The big accident was in the end of 1999. I spent the millennium in a coma with about 10 million other people on the planet, but for different reasons. You know, it wasn't alcohol induced. It was like I had an accident where I was in free fall doing a stunt, and it was on my weekend off, and a friend of mine asked me to do a charity stunt for a children's home. So he would do aerobatics, and then I would fall out of the plane, so it would look like the pilot had fallen out, and then the guy on the ground would say, my God, the pilot's fallen out of the plane. So then everybody would be looking up, and then what would happen is, whilst everybody was looking up, I would tumble and tumble and tumble, and then the idea was he would straighten the plane, and I would open my parachute, and he would straighten the plane, and then you pick up all the people who fainted, you know. And what happened is he got into my airspace, and in a 1,000,000,000 to 1 chance he hit me with the aircraft. And so my first point of contact was through the thickest part of my parachute at the base, which did some damage to my lower back. And then the second part of the impact was on my stomach, and that it tore my liver in half. It put ribs through my right lung. It ruptured my spleen, ruptured my liver, ruptured my right kidney. I was in critical care, just hanging on by a thread of life. And I got transferred then from Plettenberg Bay to a hospital where a professor van der Waal took over my case, and he talks all over the world on trauma, and he tells people, he relays all the injuries I had, and he asked them for a vote, and he did this at a symposium, and they all voted I was dead, and he voted no. He was a millennium miracle. He's 5. He said, and he told me, he said, you were the most damaged human being that I've ever worked on to survive.
Oh my God.
You know? So, you know, I've got a purpose. I'm supposed to be here. You know? And then I was paralyzed, you know. For 5 years, I mean, this left-hand side of me was switched off, so I learned everything I could about nutrition and visualization techniques and that. I mean, I came out of a coma, I had no memory, I had complete amnesia. My life didn't exist before that. And it was, I still don't know if my memories are my memories or reconstructions of memories that people have told me about. And it's like, but I learned everything I could about nutrition and about meditation techniques and visualization techniques, and I went walk about in India, and I learned meditation techniques, getting out of your mind into that very quiet, silent space, which to me is the essence of meditation, is the separation of the mind. The mind contains the soul. It's your emotions, it's your opinions, you're born perfect and you degrade thereafter. You know, and by grace we manage to get, by grace we're forgiven all of this because our failings are massive. We are taught in a very harsh environment of an environment that is cruel. Our parents are damaged people who damage their children by saying, you're stupid, you're ugly, and you're useless, and so they educate their children really badly. You know, they don't nurture, and so we have a very harsh environment, and we become harsh people, and so we fall into harsh habits, and some of us become hardened people, and unforgiving people, and hard-natured people, and others of us become cowed, and so we have victors and victims throughout the world.
What is your experience?
My experience is I was very hard, and I was a fighter, and the accident, all of a sudden I was nothing. You know, I could do nothing. I couldn't move. Every day was a miracle that I was alive. You know, I was in intensive care for 5 months, and it was an absolute miracle that I survived, and it was more of a miracle that through the visualization techniques, other than my left hand spasticity, I've got all my motion back. I was able to unlock my arm, I was able to lock my knee and my hip so I could swing my leg around and learn how to start walking again. But it took 5 years of hard work to get most of the mobility back, and I'm still not as athletic as I was by a long chalk, you know.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, I had a very unique background, so many things that people don't believe when you tell them, you know. I'm the only man in South Africa who trained with SEAL Team 8 in the USA, Special Forces, who went with them on a training. I'm the only guy who's ever done that, trained with American Special Forces, and it was SEAL Team 8 out of Coronado.
Have you been recognized for that?
Look, I mean, the people who count know. I mean, there's people there who were there with me, and nobody else needs to know. It's nothing else I have to brag about or talk about, you know. I mean, at my friend's funeral when he got killed, my best friend, I went over. He put in his will that they must buy me a ticket and a decent suit and fly me over to talk over his coffin, and I did that. And and I spoke over his coffin, which was a great privilege. And then afterwards, they said, where would John go on a place like this for a wake? I said, John, he'd go to a strip club. So we ended up in a strip club with all these special forces guys, and it was like, and we took over the whole place, and it was, and I was there with legends like, the movie Black Hawk Down, the XO from Black Hawk Down. He was there. He was at the wake, and all the two twins who went back into battle to rescue they were there. I mean, I was working with legends, and Chris Crane, who was SEAL Team 8, SEAL Team 6, and then Delta Force.
What?
I mean,
Okay.
he's still. I'm still in contact with him. It's like some legends in their field, and I don't talk about it, and I don't brag about it, and people on this side who know me know what I've done, and people who've been there don't talk about it and brag about it, because there's a lot of there's a lot of hardship in that environment. It's literally, you're trying to kill people. That's what you're trying to do, and so and that's what you're expected to do. And so you don't talk about it afterwards. It's one of those things. You can look at somebody and you can look at them, and I see people and I look them in the eye, they look me in the eye. Yeah, they know.
They know.
They know. You've been there.
Looking back, what are you most proud of?
Most proud of?
Mm-hmm.
Look, I mean, I won Stuntman of the Year, which was a big event, and I was recognized for it, but it seems like nothing. What I'm most proud of is I survived, and I'm on my feet, and my faith survived. That is what I'm most grateful for. Oh, God.
Oh, I'm getting into your emotion.
Look, guys, I'm here because of God's grace. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be able to do any of this. I believe my best years are still ahead of me. I've run out of steam a little bit because it's been such a hard effort to keep on going and keep on going and keep on building and keep on building. So what I'm doing is, at the end of this month, I'm taking off. I'm going walkabout. I'm going back to India. I'm going to walk about. There's some things that I've learned that you can't explain to people, and people who are fundamental in their belief, and fundamentalism is a destructive element of Christianity. There's no room for fundamentalism. It's total tolerance of everybody, because Christ is tolerant of everybody, wherever they come from, wherever they're at. He meets you where you are at, because you are not capable of meeting him where he is at. And so he has made that available to us, to come down and meet with us and say, I'm going to make you whole. And he makes us whole, that we can go into the presence of God and not have a spot or blemish or anything or any shame. The only shame we carry around is in our own minds, in our souls. It's our souls that need redemption. Our spirits are redeemed. It's our souls that we strive for redemption. It's our memories, our regrets. We regret things. It's against our faith. We've forgiven that. God looks at us and he doesn't see that. We see it. We flagellate ourselves. We beat ourselves up when we're forgiven and we're free. And the recognition of that freedom is the greatest gift that you can give yourself. That I am free and I am forgiven. It doesn't matter what I do. It's not going to affect where I go. I learned, I had out of the body experiences where, like that, I was gone and I was suddenly in another place, and I could feel the grass growing underneath my feet, and I could feel the amazing thing, and it was like watching an old television set, black and white, compared with the new HD TV. That's what it's like. When you step out of your body here, there's no time difference. There's no tunnel for me or bright light or whatever. All of a sudden I was there, and it was grass growing and everything else. And then I went into a cottage, and there there was an old lady, and it was my grandmother. She died 6 months before, and she turned around and she said to me, she looked at me in surprise, and she said, "Hey, lad, you're early. It's not your time. You must go back." And then, and that's when I woke up out of the coma with all these tubes down my throat and everything else, you know. So, yeah, does heaven exist? There's no doubt about it. Am I scared of death? No. And when it happens, it's like you're here, you're there. That's it, you know. And I mean, I met things that you can't explain. So some of your fundamentalists will say, "Oh no, that's demonic, and that's this and that's that." That's fundamentalism, and there's no room for that, because there's only one source of good, and there's only one source of evil. And it's like they said to Jesus, "Are you're healing people in the name of Beelzebub?" And he said, "No, there is only one healer, one giver of life." So whatever source it comes from, if it's in an Indian ashram and healing comes to you, that comes from one source. And this is what people find hard. I mean, I met a guy there called Christ Krishna, and when I was introduced to him, he said, "Sebastian, I see that the side of your brain has been damaged." I mean, he knew that. He said, "And I see that there's no strength in your left-hand side, because I have brachial partial separation." And then he said, "I'd like to spend some time teaching you." And so he taught me about aspects of the soul, you know, the mind, the intellect, the emotions, how they fit in, how they cripple us, how they can empower us, how we need to control the reins when it comes to where our soul goes, because our soul will take us down the darkest roads. We have a natural inbuilt ability, that spark of life in us, to always try to move and aspire towards the light. And so we continue to move towards the light. And somewhere along the line, we meet our Maker, you know, or He meets us. You know, it's a seek and you shall find. You know, it's that simple. If you're looking, God's going to find you, you know, wherever you are.
If you're looking, God's gonna find you. Thank you, Sebastian, for sharing your incredible journey as a stunt performer. So stay tuned for another episode, still with Sebastian. We're gonna get close into another chapter of his life. You don't wanna miss it. My name is Kapi Diangu, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Sebastian Paul Siebert. And if you look at me on the IMDb, Internet Movie Database, you must look under Paul Siebert, because I was, my father was Sebastian, and you couldn't have two Sebastians in the room, because my mother would shout, "Sebastian," and we'd be going, "Chung chung cha," you know, and so it was like, okay, you Paul now, you know, so it's Paul Siebert in the movies.
Okay, see you for the next episode. Bye.